Hello, hello, hello. I think I am live on Facebook and Instagram at the same time. Wow. Hello. I am here today, same time, same place all week. So, Monday through Friday, I am here to answer your questions about sobriety, getting sober, what sobriety is like, problems you're having, challenges, mindset, all of that kind of stuff for the next 30 minutes. So if you're watching this live, please say hi in the comments. And if you have questions, please put those in the comments too. We have a ton of questions that we get from our audience, from our Facebook group and from Instagram. And I'm going to go through some of them. But if you have some, please let me know if I don't answer a particular thing. Lots of questions are very similar. So you may very well get what you're thinking about answered here. Now, the reason I'm doing this all week is because Sober for Life, my subscription group, is open for enrollment just this week. Now, here's what's important. Obviously, it's amazing. The thing about Sober for Life is I think, I don't know of many other subscription groups that are low cost and professionally led. Here's the thing. It is led by addiction professionals. So everybody who works in Sober for Life and facilitates support groups and delivers workshops all have qualifications in addiction. So it's really important that you know that it's a really affordable way to get professional support and be part of an exclusive global community. The other important thing to know is because we're adding so many great features, we are increasing the price slightly. So this is your last chance to join this week at the low price of $25.99. We are raising it just slightly because we are bringing in some more features. So if you whatever price you join at is what you pay for as long as you're a member. So don't sit on the fence, join now to get in at that lower price. Okay. So let me start by answering your questions. Again, if you have questions, put them in the comment section and I'll answer them for you. Okay, so this is a good one and I want to start with this one. I definitely have changed my old views that during stressful activities or anticipating stress or anxiety filled situations that reaching for alcohol is the thing to do. But I still haven't changed my ingrained belief that drinking is fun. So I think what they're saying is that they no longer use alcohol or view alcohol as a good way to deal with stress or anxiety. They understand that it's a terrible way to deal with stress and anxiety. But what is still lingering is, however, but alcohol is the best way to have fun. Now, I want to say that you are not alone there. That is probably one of the most common things that I hear in all of my work from all of my clients. It's a very, very, and the person says it, ingrained. It's really, really ingrained. In fact, that's what we have been conditioned to believe since we are very, very young. And it is conditioning. It's conditioning from popular culture, from the media. If you look at how alcohol is represented in TV and movies and films, you very much see that. You know, the detectives had a hard day at work and they reach for the whiskey at the end of the day. Or someone's doing something, you know, celebrating or meeting up with friends, it's cocktails. What's never shown is the reality and the consequences. So I want you to bear two things in mind as I answer this. And it's about perception and it's about reality. Our perception that alcohol and drinking is a way to have fun is again, it's a conditioning, a belief that's not usually based in a lot of reality. And that's why we continue to drink way beyond when it's good for us and when the consequences and the cost are racking up. So here's the thing. Can drinking alcohol be fun? Yes, of course. However, whenever we drink, whatever we drink and how much we drink, even if it's one glass of wine, there is always a cost. And whether that's a cost to our health, to our brain chemistry, to our relationships, to our employment. There is always a cost. So you can have fun lots and lots of different ways that have no cost. You can have fun with alcohol, but there is always a cost. And what happens as we continue in our drinking careers is the costs continue to climb and the fun declines. And what often people are doing, if you've been drinking for 10, 15, 20, 25 years longer, what's often happening is you are drinking in the hope that it's going to be how it was in the beginning, despite that being several years, often decades behind you. But the belief is if you just manage it, if you just kind of get it right, then you will find a way to get back to how it was at the very beginning. Now, it's interesting. I'm doing this for those of you who are in Europe the day after the European Championships ended in London, with sadly England losing on penalties and Italy winning. Now, after I was listening to a lot of the radio after this dreadful defeat, and unfortunately what's happening in England is there's been violence and racism and all this kind of stuff. And I was listening to this story of a woman who was a volunteer steward at Wembley Stadium. And she said, like, hours before the kickoff at Wembley, there was a massive group of men, white men, drinking outside Wembley Stadium, getting absolutely wrecked, behaving terribly, trying to charge in without getting a ticket, all that kind of stuff. And she was saying it was just a horrible, horrible experience. Now, the commentator was like, why do people behave like that? Why is that happening? And I'm like, I can tell you why it's happening. The reason is these men believe that situations and events like soccer and the European Cup final are improved with alcohol use. That that alcohol will make this event more fun, more enjoyable, a better experience. That's what I mean when I talk about perception and reality. So, is that correct? I'm going to say an emphatic no. It certainly wasn't enjoyable for anyone around them. When we're drunk in that way, we're often disconnected from people, not very connected. There would have been consequences. But we have this perception that alcohol will make this more fun. So I want to say the best way to tackle this is to do a cost-benefit analysis. Start with a cost. Look at what alcohol costs you. Look at what it costs you in bandwidth, which is how much time do you spend thinking about drinking, not drinking, recovering from drinking. What does it cost you in your health, your mental health, serotonin? Are you depressed afterwards? And then look at the fun that you're having from that night out. Ask yourself, am I getting a good return on investment? Simply all it is. Are you getting a good return on your investment? And that is when we can begin to shift from our perception that alcohol is fun to the reality. And I want to say, in all honesty, if you do a really thorough cost-benefit analysis and you look at what alcohol use and abuse costs you, and you are happy with that, crack on. I have no argument with it. I'd like to tax you more to pay for the criminal justice and medical bills that inevitably will come, but I have no complaint about that. But what I have found is most people, when they do a cost-benefit analysis, see that the cost is far outweighing the perceived fun, and then the perceived fun is actually not as fun as what we perceived it to be. Now, when we get to that point, we often feel quite like, it feels quite devastating. I know I felt like that. I thought I was never going to have fun again when I got sober at 27 years old. I thought my life would be very grey and dull and boring. And I want to say none of that has been true. I've been sober for 21 years. If this wasn't fun, I would have been drunk 20 years ago. But you have to allow yourself some time to figure that out. And you also have to know what you're up against. That we have massive cultural conditioning that you need to drink alcohol to have fun, and that will not go away overnight. That's why you need help, and that's why you need a community. So I hope that answered your question about if I stop drinking, how am I going to have fun? And this ingrained belief that alcohol is fun. That's a lot of the work that I do with my clients, is beginning to deconstruct that so that we can then live in reality without the costs. And again, I want to tell you, at 27, when I got sober, I 100% thought I would never have fun again. But I also want to tell you, I've done all the things sober. I have been to festivals, camping, vacations, New Year's Eve parties, tons of parties, nightclubs, weddings, my own and other people, everything. And I've done every single one of them sober. And I want to tell you, it's so much better. That's the truth. All of those experiences were so much better because I worked on what was my perception and what was reality. Okay, so another question I want to ask. I have been sober for 90 days. I'm not sure if I can be a mindful drinker or live a fully sober life after lockdown. So I want to say several things about this, because this is really common, because lots of people have been sober in lockdown, and they've done it because they've found it easier, temptation, all of that kind of stuff hasn't been there. So that, it's just been an easier experience. But things are opening up. People are going to want to party and celebrate. I know I do. And it's concerning for a lot of people. So I want to say, controlled drinking and mindful drinking, I think, is the biggest load of BS I've ever heard. I'm sorry. When alcohol is such a toxic substance, it's just wrecks your insides. Even if you're only 4 or 5 glasses of wine a week, it does no favors to your physical or mental health. It screws up everything. So there's no benefit to it. It depletes your serotonin. The cost of drinking, even if you're a very modest drinker, for me that cost is way too high to pay. Just way too high to pay. And I feel people, it really goes back to my previous question. I feel that people want to try controlled drinking or mindful drinking because they are stuck in a faulty belief that it brings them a benefit. So they really don't want to stop because they believe that there's perceived benefits they will not be able to get or access if they don't drink. And that's why people put effort into controlled and mindful drinking. So first of all, I believe it's based on a false belief system. The second thing is it really requires effort. And it's hard, and I don't really understand why you would put effort into something that's so kind of absurd in many ways. Why would you put effort into trying to control something that is so lethal and toxic for you and everyone around you? So first of all, it takes some effort. You're working against yourself. It doesn't. We've all done it, right? We've all said, right, I'm only just going to have 2 drinks, and the thing is, when we have our alcohol in our system, it doesn't matter what we decided 2 hours ago. Alcohol in itself depletes any determination or willpower we have. Anyway, thing is about alcohol, when you drink it, it makes you thirsty, so you want to have more of it. So it's like swimming upstream. So I want to say, to answer this, I want to say, give yourself a year. Give yourself a year and go through a whole calendar year. And by that, the reason for that is go through a sober summer, sober Christmas, sober New Year's, sober barbecue, do all of the things and see what that's like. Now, in addition to that, and if you've listened to my podcast or any of my stuff, you know that I say this again and again. Just stopping drinking is not enough. Do some work on yourself. What I do with my clients is personal development for sober people. It's about knowing yourself better. It's about working the 5 pillars of sobriety, which is my program: movement, connection, balance, process, and growth. It's not about staying away from a drink one day at a time. It's about personal development. It's about expanding your experience, because we can't grow emotionally when we're drinking in the way that we're designed to. And I want to just explain this. When you have a problem with alcohol, as I said, you do 4 things. You drink, you think about drinking, you think about not drinking, and you recover from drinking. And those things take up energy and effort and bandwidth. So say it takes up 20 to 30% of your bandwidth. You can do a lot with 70-80% bandwidth. You can have a career, you can buy a home, you can go on vacation, you can raise kids. But what you cannot do is grow emotionally the way that you are meant to. So stop drinking for a year. Do some work with a qualified and experienced professional on the personal development work. It's only going to improve your life. I promise you. It's not always easy, but it's going to improve your life. And then you can decide, is a sober life better? Or do I want to go back to drinking? Alcohol's never going to go away. It's always going to be there. However old you are, you probably have decades of potential drinking ahead of you if you want to do that. Or you could explore for a year if there's another way. So stop drinking, but don't do it alone. It doesn't work. We need community and we need expert input so we can do this deeper personal work. Makes sense? I just want to see if there's any questions. Oh, that's so nice, Beth. Beth's just saying how much she loved the podcast. That's so nice. Thank you. We love hearing that. Okay. So another question. As a long-time social drinker with no impacts from alcohol in my life to a daily drinker where alcohol negatively affected many personal relationships, is there a way to get back to that social drinking way of living? So first of all, I want to say that's a really good example there of perception versus reality. As a long-time social drinker with no impacts from alcohol in my life, I'm going to say you're deceiving yourself. Because for all the reasons first of all, alcohol is an antidepressant. It's a depressant. Sorry, it's not an antidepressant. It's a depressant. It depresses the central nervous system. So when you ingest alcohol, you are depressing your central nervous system and prohibiting your brain creating the chemical serotonin, which is the chemical we need to all just feel okay. So there's an impact right there. If you're a woman, it raises your chances of breast cancer by 15%. There's an impact right there. So that is, you're deceiving yourself. But I think what you're saying is it's not like I was being arrested or lying in the gutter or anything like that. I'd also push a bit further and say, wonder if it did ever cause any ickiness in relationships or that kind of stuff. But I kind of have really answered this. Is there a way to go back to social drinking? In my 20 years experience as a therapist, the answer is a hard no. Although people will often spend many years trying and dying in the process. Let's put it simply. You can't unpickle a cucumber. See, the thing is, once we have crossed over into abusive drinking, our brain always remembers this. So it doesn't matter if we stop drinking for 5 years. If we start drinking again, our brain goes, oh, that's that substance. This is how much I need of it. So people again, why would you put so many resources and effort trying to be a social drinker? The reason is, and I also want to say, and I write about this in my book, social drinking is a euphemism. We, in our culture, and I very much mean the British, American, Australian culture, we have normalized abusive drinking. So we have normalized and made it what is actually an alcohol problem and what is abusive drinking. We have made that normal. So what people think is social drinking is actually abusive drinking. What is, like, if you're going to drink alcohol, and lots of people are shocked by this. I'll give you an example. My husband, who drinks alcohol very occasionally, he will, if we go out for dinner a couple of times a month with somebody else, another couple, and they order a bottle of wine, he would have half a glass. If we went out by ourselves, he wouldn't have anything. He orders Disaronno, it's a liquor, and he'll put it in his soup. That's what he likes to do. So the consequences of that are extremely minimal. I drink Diet Coke occasionally. Not great stuff. There's some consequences to that. So, but what I want to say is, that's like, pick your poison. He maybe has 3 or 4 alcoholic drinks a month. Maybe at a stretch. it's such a lot of effort to just try and manage this, and we're doing it because of the perception of what we think it brings. That's why we have to do that work, see if it's real. Maybe there's a whole different way in life out there for you. Okay, someone has said here, why do I keep relapsing? Okay, so the reason that we relapse, a lot of it is the stuff we've already covered, is our perception. The missing out, often people are sober for a few weeks or a few months, they feel a lot better. And then they start thinking, actually maybe I could have a couple of glasses of wine. It'd be nice to have it at the barbecue this weekend, and I'll be like the other people there who look like they're enjoying themselves, or I'll be like the people on the TV. So the reason that we keep relapsing is because often because we still haven't adjusted our perception of what alcohol really does to our life. But I also want to say there's another phenomenon, and it's to do with how we change and how we grow. So when you wake up and you decide you want to stop drinking, it's a call to growth. It's you wake up and something inside of you is saying, that was not a nice experience. I don't like how this makes me feel. I want to try not drinking. I want to stop drinking. And sometimes we go for a few days or weeks or even months, and we begin to feel better, and we begin to sort of navigate life without alcohol. But here's what happens. When we get this call to growth and we start moving, we're going to this different place. We're going to the land of sober. And the land of sober is, you've never been there before. You don't know what it looks like. How do you navigate the land of sober? How do you do weekends? How do you do weddings? How do you do Christmas? All of those things without alcohol. We have no idea. It's the unknown. So what happens is when we start moving and changing, something happens inside. It's called what I call the voice of the ego. So we all have this voice inside of us. Everybody has it. We're narrating our own lives. The ego's main job is to keep us safe. And it believes that familiar is safe. So if everything stays exactly as it is, doesn't fluctuate too much, then we will all be good and fine. So what happens is when we start moving to something that's unknown, the ego gets really concerned because it doesn't know how to keep you safe in this new land of sober. And that's when that voice in our heads really takes off. It will start saying things like, you're not that bad. It's not like you're getting arrested. You just need to stick to wine. Don't have spirits, just stick to wine and only drink at weekends, and then you'll be fine. And then what happens when this voice starts telling us these things, we begin to feel more uncomfortable, and we begin to feel more, we begin to feel more uncomfortable. We feel more, it also feels a little bit frightening. And then that's when we're trying to stay sober on willpower. So, Kate, I'm going to answer your question in a second after this. So we can't stay sober on willpower. It doesn't work. So after a while, just feeling really, really uncomfortable, and this voice saying, you're not that bad. You can manage a couple of drinks. You haven't drunk for 3 weeks now. What happens then is we think, well, you know what? Yeah, I'm not getting arrested every day or lying in the gutter. I think I'll just stick to wine, 2 glasses, I'll be fine. And then we drink again, and then the same thing happens, and we wake up in the same place, and we don't understand why nothing has changed. So often we're in this pattern of deciding we don't want to drink, trying to do it, on our own with willpower. We get to a certain point, it feels really uncomfortable, we go back to how we are. And I'm going to say that's why we need a community, that's why we need help. Navigating through this resistance, through this fear, is simply a skill that once you learn it, not only can you do it with getting sober, it applies to everything in our life, because whenever we do anything new, we always go through some fear and resistance. A new job, a new college course, a new group that we join, we always go through that like fear and resistance. So it's simply a life skill that we don't have. So once you have that life skill, then we can start navigating around it. And that's why you need to do the personal development. That's why you need to do it with experts. And that's why you keep relapsing. So I've got a couple of questions here I want to answer. Kate, I'm almost 2 years sober, but my husband drinks a handle of whiskey every few days. His drinking is escalating. How do I get him to rehab? I'm at my wit's end. So, Kate, This is my experience. There's several things. I'm not sure a handle of whiskey how much that is exactly. Um, it's can be challenging. Um, you be an example of what sobriety is. Kate, are you doing? Are you doing working a program? Are you getting support? All of that kind of stuff? Because people around us can see us changing, and I'm wondering how he feels about you changing. A successful way to get people into rehab is to do a professional intervention. You they can, be expensive. They're usually fairly highly successful in getting people into rehab, but then what happens after that is uh, completely open. I mean, people can leave, they can stay, whatever. Um, I'm going to say, in my experience, if people are still drinking, they don't want to hear that they've got a problem, and they don't want to hear about stopping. And especially if you're very close to them, like this is your husband, he won't hear you. So I would not say anything about his drinking. I would work on yourself. I would go to some support groups for people in your situation. And I would look at uh, what you can do that way, having better boundaries, all of that kind of stuff. But trying to get people to change doesn't work. So work on having better boundaries. Keep working on being an example of someone in sobriety. Get on with parts of your life and accept that he might be there for a while. You know what, Kate? Sometimes people get sober and sometimes people don't. And you have to work on how you are, what that means for you. Does that make sense? Megan, how do the daily live support groups in Sober for Life program tend to be? I tried an online support group, but there were 200 plus people at each session, and there was not conductive to me feeling like I could easily participate. I'm a bit of an introvert, so I remained anonymous, which was not helpful. Are there opportunities for personal connection and relationships? So I want to say absolutely yes. So we have lots of meetings. We do have some big ones, but I don't think we have over 200. I think the biggest is like 40. We have regular meetings. There's meetings every day, and we also have different specialized workshops. And I would say the thing about Sober for Life, we also have a lovely community. Lots of people all over the world have formed connections. So let me tell you how the meetings go. They're all led by different professionals. Myself, Chip from the podcast, Yolanda Tamarat, we're all qualified in treating alcohol problems. So often we open with a little bit of teaching, a little bit a reflection, a reading, and then we open up the group for questions and people who need support. And the way that works is, so people will say, I'm really struggling today with this, or I have this problem, or this is going on. So you have the opportunity to get in front of someone and say, I need help with X, Y, and Z. And whoever's taking the call will coach you and help you. But what you will find in the call is many people have the same issue, have the same question. So you'll attend, you'll get some teaching, you can get some in-person support, but you'll also often find by just listening, if I could be, someone could say, ask Kate's question, and we could work on how we could, how we could support her, what she could do in her life, and you could be sitting there going, that's me, that's what I need to do, and you got everything you needed. So I think what's different is it's not just, it's really about getting in front of a professional, asking a question, getting some help, and listening to other people be helped will help you understand that you're not remotely special and different, and you're not alone, and what you're going through is very similar. Do you have a book club reputation for my very tight girlfriend group? We are social drinkers who recognize that perhaps they overdo it. Any of us would support the others in ceasing alcohol consumption. We just have some work we need to do. I definitely recommend Laura McCowan's book, We Are the Luckiest, and also Holly Whitaker's book, Quit Like a Woman. I think those would be helpful. And I also recommend my book that's coming out in January, Soberful. Certainly the first half of it explores a lot of that. Kate, yes, he is threatened. So I would leave it well enough alone. Have boundaries, really tough, really firm boundaries with him, and get on with your sober life. We can't change other people. We just can't. Even when they're self-destructing, we can't change people. So all we can do is change our response to what's happening. So I hope that made sense. Thank you so much for your questions. I'll be back tomorrow and the rest of the week. Let me know if you have questions. You can post them in the Facebook group and tag me. You can message me on Instagram, and I'll be back every day answering as many as I can. All right, take care. Bye-bye.